All of them, because they illegally broke our nation's laws and therefore they are criminals as far as this administration goes. I know the last administration didn't see it that way.
The scene at ABC headquarters was nothing short of chaos. A storm had been brewing for weeks, but no one had predicted the level of devastation that was about to hit. Inside the boardrooms, panic was palpable as network executives scrambled to manage a disaster of their own making. This wasn't just any routine PR nightmare. This was something far worse, something they couldn't contain no matter how hard they tried. It all began with the rising star, the bold conservative firebrand Karoline Leavitt. At just 25 years old, she had quickly made a name for herself as a political strategist, outspoken conservative, and a force to be reckoned with. Her name was already circulating in the halls of power, and she had an army of supporters behind her. But Karoline had something that the liberal panel of The View didn't expect: a spine of steel and the guts to stand up to them when no one else would. The View, that beloved morning talk show, had just made the colossal mistake of attacking her. And not just any attack. No, this was a coordinated smear campaign, led by none other than Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sunny Hostin, the three women who had become infamous for their progressive stances. They'd spent years mocking conservatives, pushing their liberal agenda, and stoking outrage over every issue imaginable. But Karoline, with her quick wit and sharp mind, wasn't one to back down from a fight. And when the women of The View went low, she responded with something no one was ready for. Let's rewind the tape, because this moment was a turning point. The panel, in their usual condescending way, had decided to take aim at Karoline, and they did it with an arrogance that can only come from the belief that they were untouchable. It all started with Behar, the queen of dismissive remarks, who couldn't resist the urge to belittle Karoline, reducing her entire career to a superficial judgment about her looks. Karoline wasn't hired because of her intelligence, her dedication, or her qualifications. No, in Joy's world, Karoline's success was only explained by one thing: she was a 10 in Trump's eyes. The irony was almost too much to bear. Here was Behar, a woman who had spent decades claiming to champion women's rights and empowerment, now tearing down another woman's achievements simply because she didn't fit into her narrative. It was the worst kind of hypocrisy, and Karoline wasn't about to let it slide. But the attacks didn't stop there. Whoopi Goldberg, with her usual self-righteous tone, jumped in, accusing Karoline of benefiting from wokeness, claiming that she wouldn't even have a job if it weren't for the same progressive activism that Karoline opposed. "Without that wokeness, you might not have that job," Whoopi said, completely rewriting history and dismissing everything Karoline had worked for. But Karoline wasn't about to play along. She wasn't going to sit there and let Whoopi and Joy spin their twisted version of reality. No, she hit back hard. With the calmness of someone who knew exactly what they were talking about, she dismantled their arguments one by one. It wasn't just a rebuttal. It was a masterclass in truth-telling. Karoline exposed Whoopi's ridiculous claims about wokeness, and pointed out the absurdity of suggesting that someone like her, a woman who had worked her way to the top, owed her success to progressive ideology. The audience was stunned. Whoopi's attempt at mansplaining Karoline's own career to her had failed spectacularly. And the rest of the panel, they were left speechless, completely caught off guard. Sunny Hostin, who had been one of the loudest voices in the attack, found herself frozen. She couldn't say a word. This wasn't just a political battle. It was a full-on takedown, and Karoline had delivered it flawlessly. But Karoline didn't stop there. No. She wasn't content with just putting the women of The View in their place. She took her message to a bigger stage, one that would shake the network to its core. In a now viral video, Karoline tore the mask off The View and exposed them for what they were: a panel of bitter, out-of-touch elitists who pretended to support women, but only if those women agreed with them. She took aim at Behar, calling out her hypocrisy for claiming to empower women while tearing down any woman who didn't fit into her narrow worldview. It was ruthless, it was honest, and it was exactly what The View had coming. But the final blow, that came when Karoline turned her sights on Whoopi Goldberg and the rest of the women. She exposed their hypocrisy on a scale they hadn't anticipated. She wasn't just fighting back. She was standing tall for every woman they'd ever tried to tear down, for every conservative voice they'd silenced, for every woman who had been told they didn't belong at the table because they didn't think like the elites.
I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
And in that moment, Karoline became more than just a political strategist. She became the voice of millions who had been dismissed, belittled, and ignored. And the world took notice. Social media exploded. Karoline's words went viral, and within minutes, The View was under attack like never before. The backlash was immediate and relentless. Fans of The View who had once defended the show were now questioning whether they could continue to support it. The hypocrisy of the hosts, once swept under the rug, was now front and center for all to see. Comments flooded in from viewers who were sick and tired of the show's toxic, divisive rhetoric. ABC, ever the master of spinning media crises, quickly found themselves in full-blown panic mode. Reports from insiders claimed that producers were furious. Furious that what was supposed to be a simple hit job on Karoline had completely backfired. What had been intended as a quick smear of a rising conservative star had turned into one of the biggest PR disasters the network had ever seen. The show's credibility, already on shaky ground, was now teetering on the edge of collapse. Behind the scenes, the pressure mounted. Some executives were reportedly questioning whether Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg had become liabilities rather than assets. How much longer could they keep up the charade? How many more scandals could the network afford to handle before they lost their audience, their sponsors, and their place in the public's good graces? Some even speculated that the network was considering cutting ties with their biggest stars to salvage what was left of the show's reputation. The very future of The View was now in jeopardy. And it wasn't just conservatives who were calling out the hypocrisy. Even former fans of the show were waking up. The shift in public opinion was undeniable. What had once been a popular talk show with a devoted fan base was now being questioned by its own viewers. People were beginning to see through the facade. They were waking up to the reality that The View wasn't the feminist powerhouse it pretended to be. It was a show that preached empowerment, but only to those who fit into their narrow, progressive narrative. As the days passed, the situation continued to spiral out of control. ABC, desperate to restore some sense of order, reportedly pleaded with Karoline to drop her lawsuit. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. Karoline Leavitt had not only defeated The View in a battle of words, and as the dust began to settle, one thing was clear: The View had finally met its match.